Nice, man.
Thank you.
You like this one?
Yeah, yeah,
Like
yeah. That
too,
was
cool.
better. It was more
Okay,
my
perfect.
taste. Yeah, yeah.
I
Great.
think I will do a little cut here anyway, so we don't have. We can just take this one and then we go.
Yeah,
Okay.
great, great.
Yeah, perfect, man. Man, I saw your stuff on the internet and I'm
Yeah.
really impressed. But right when you're sitting here, it's really different. It's something you have to experience by yourself. When somebody plays so sophisticated and clean and still with feeling, it's
Thank you.
very, very great. But
Thank you so much.
man, you deserve it. But I think there's a reason because you play like this. Because I saw on the internet actually that you have 2 degrees, right? You have a degree in classical guitar and in jazz guitar, right?
Yeah, yeah. I studied classical guitar when I was at high school, and I have a degree in jazz guitar. I finished studying last year at the conservatory in Palermo. So yeah, I have like mixed the best of both worlds, let's say. And of course, my technique is really similar to the classical technique, but it's not quite the same, of course. And I took a lot of inspiration from the traditional jazz guitar, so it's a mix of both.
That's crazy, man. That's really unique because when you tell me that, it's hard to believe because I know in jazz schools they can be very strict, I think, and you have to use a pick and they have their specific technique with the alternate picking. Like how were your professors and the people who teach you, what were they thinking when you just started playing like this?
Well, I consider myself lucky enough to have encountered professors and teachers that they weren't really that strictly, you know, because I played like that since I was 10 years old. And playing with a pick was too strange for me, I don't know why. And I started like that because my father is also a guitar player and he played a lot of classical guitar back then. And I always saw it playing with fingers, so I just thought every guitar was meant to be played like that, you know. And yeah, that's the reason why I started. And when I was at conservatory, of course, there were some rules that you had to follow, but technique-wise, there are more restriction on the classical world rather than the
Oh,
jazz
okay.
world. Like
No.
from my experience on the jazz guitar course, everyone had their own way of playing. Maybe they were holding the pick a little bit differently than the teacher, but we weren't in a really strictly mood, you know. On the other hand, the classical guitar world has a lot of rules, like you need to have nails and you need to play like that and not like that, you know. From my point of view, there are way more rules on the classical world rather than the jazz world. And for me, you know, I don't consider myself a good classical player because I wasn't a really good student, you know. I always liked the rock and roll side of things. So distortion guitar was, I fell in love with the guitar because of Jimi Hendrix, you know. It was my very first big influence. So playing only classical guitar, you know, wasn't my thing. Also because you often play alone when you are playing classical guitar, you know. There are a lot of solo pieces, but I sometimes miss the interaction that you have with the rhythm section, for example. You don't have much of that on the classical world, I think. That's why I choose the electric guitar as my primary instrument.
But was it something that was forced? Like, do you had to do like the classical education, or did you want to do it from the start, or just from the beginning you were like the rock guy, just wanted to play electric guitar?
I think at the beginning was a little bit forced, I have to say, because I wasn't really into classical music, you know. My first influences were like Deep Purple, AC/DC, Jimi Hendrix, you know. So that's why at the start it was a little bit tough for me to learn classical guitar, but it actually helped me a lot, especially for the technique and literature, of course. There are a lot of incredibly beautiful solo guitar pieces, you know, on the classical world. But as I said, I don't consider myself a pure classical player. I borrowed a lot of things from the classical world, and I can assure that classical guitar helps you a lot in a lot of ways, not only for the technique, you know. So yeah, it's something that I think you need to do if you want to go in deep the study of the guitar itself.
Yeah, that's very interesting because when you play, you mainly improvise, right? You work in
most of the time.
improvisation, and that's coming out of the jazz world primarily, I think.
Yeah.
And then the classical guitar, it's more like pieces, like it's how it is, and you can interpret the stuff, the pieces, but it's not improvised. So when you play, like, how do you think theoretically? Like, do you think in scales, or do you borrow from classical theory, or do you think more like a standard jazz player, like in modes, like melodic minor, harmonic minor modes and stuff, or do you have your own way of thinking because of the classical background?
I think it's a mix of both, because I started to analyze more my improvisation abilities when I was studying jazz guitar. So I was improvising since the start, you know, and most of my vocabulary was rock based. So I was always in my pentatonic box, you know.
Okay.
So that was my skeleton, basically, my blues rock vocabulary. As I said, a lot of Led Zeppelin, Deep Purple.
Oh, it's good that you show that, because most people, they forget to work on that, on the basics.
Yeah,
Like,
I think it's really important. Yeah.
yeah. I consider myself as guilty with that, like trying complicated stuff and like weird outside scales, but not working on the like basics, like a great pentatonic foundation, like major and minor, like you just did, and some blues scale stuff.
Yeah,
So,
I think it's really important because it is part of the history of this instrument.
yes.
So I think we all listen to Hendrix and Jeff Beck also, and all the traditional guitar greats, you know. And I think it's part of our history. And for my taste, I tend to prefer guitar players that don't forget about the blues, rather than guitar players that are not so blues oriented, let's say. That's why one of my favorite players is Scott Henderson, because it's really a blues rock player with a lot of harmonic colors from the jazz background, you know. So that's why I really like Scott as a player. And of course, it's a really a mix of a lot of different elements. So yeah, don't forget to play the blues.
That's the foundation, man. Yeah, you already said that Scott Henderson, it's one of your influences. You also said Jeff Beck recently passed away, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Another great guitarist. So what are some of your heroes, like maybe different influences that are maybe not so well known?
Yeah, one of the biggest influences for me is for sure Alan Allsworth. He's one of the guys that I listen a lot, maybe too much sometimes.
But you don't play it so much legato, right? I mean, it's basically all picked with your fingers, right?
Yeah, when I play clean, it's mostly picked with my fingers. But when I play distorted, for example, there are a lot of like Eric Johnson / Alan Allsworth inspired licks, you know. So it's like a mix of a lot of different techniques, and of course the Alan Allsworth vibe is there. I also stole a lot of tapping, you know, from Van Halen and Greg Howe also, for example. So it's of course a mix of various guitar players, sax and piano players sometimes. So yeah, when I play with the distortion, I tend to play more legato stuff, and when I play clean, I try to play more with my right hand, like alternate. Yeah.
Yeah, I also saw a video of you, actually multiple videos. Like one was a gig with like a jazz trio, I think, in Italy, right? And this was more like jazz oriented, like the entire sound was just like
Yeah,
more jazz based, and your new stuff, your new album is more rock orientated with a little like Latin twist, I think.
yeah, there are some songs. Samba Party, for example, is a perfect example of
Great
like
one.
little Latin twist with the rock vibe. But it's not an album that I can categorize really, because there are some jazz-oriented songs like Blues for John, for example, is a blues dedicated to John McLaughlin, another one of my favorites. Polyphemo is another jazz-oriented songs. Then there is also Drop D, is the rock and roll song of the album. So it's kind of a mix and sometimes also a tribute to my influences. So I don't really want to choose my style, you know, like I'm a rock player or I'm a jazz player. I just want to have it all combined, you know. Yeah.
Where does the Latin influence come from?
Yeah, I think from many listenings, I am a big fan of a trio. They are Argentinian, not from Brazil. It's called the Aca Seca Trio. It's not really very well known in Italy, but they are really one of my favorite players from the South American parts, you know. And also, you know, I studied a lot of Latin, samba, bossa nova when I was at conservatory, so inevitably it will come to your playing. Also, a lot of jazz standards played by, you know, the classical jazz greats like Oscar Peterson, also Pat Metheny, George Benson. They have also a lot of Latin influences, so you get a lot of it from this artist.
I saw another video of you, and you were pretty young. You had like a little scarf, and your hair were a bit different on.
I
on
hate that
Insta-
video.
on
I
Instagram.
hate that video. I saw it and I was playing like Paul Gilbert licks in a
You
very
were
bad way.
shredding on the
Yeah,
streets.
I was red. I was maybe 16 years old, but I hate the video. I don't usually watch it when it comes on YouTube, but yeah, it was my shred period.
Yeah.
I'm not really proud about it, but you know.
we all went through it.
Yeah.
It's still great, man. It differs from other shred videos because it's so clean because of your technique. You know,
Oh,
most
thanks,
of guys they're just like sweep picking like,
like
and you just like pick it in your style. But what puts you on the street? Like, why you were performing on the street? Do you collect like some money, or what was the reason?
Yeah, it was basically my very first band. It was a local band with people of my age, you know, we were like 15, 16 years old. And it was a rock slash metal kind of band. We were playing Ozzy Osbourne songs, Black Sabbath, AC/DC, Led Zeppelin songs. And I think the band was called Pornosaurus or something similar.
Pornosaurus.
Pornosaurus,
That's
yeah.
a great name. It's a very
Yeah.
Italian name.
Yeah, it was like it was my very first band actually. And we were playing, you know, a lot of metal stuff. I remember that we played Crazy Train. Yeah, a lot of this kind of stuff. And I was having a lot of fun playing the solos, you know, because my kind of, you know, influences at that time were Paul Gilbert for sure, Malmsteen, Steve Vai, of course, all the, you know, 80s guitar shredders.
What do you think about Randy?
Randy Rhoads, wow,
I love him,
fantastic
man.
player, fantastic
One of
player.
my- one
You
of
you
my
can hear a lot of classical influences also in there.
Like this classical piece, you know, like
Yeah,
he
yeah,
actually
where he
did
plays
one-
classical guitar.
exactly.
Yeah.
He actually went to study classical guitar. He wanted to study classical guitar right before he passed away in that bad manner.
Yeah,
That's crazy.
yeah. It was.
You're like the ultimate version of him, like because you did it the other way around. You already started classical guitar when you were young. Then you have
and
to
then he
just-
switched to the electric
Yeah.
one. Yeah, it was
That's great.
kind of the opposite of me. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there are a lot of great players especially from the 80s. Even if, you know, I'm not a really big fan of the shred period, because on the last 80s period, it was too much about speed and technique rather than, you know, other qualities. But, you know, there are plenty of good players. One of them is Vinnie Moore also.
Oh, yeah.
very clean player
Yeah.
and very good sound.
He has like a funny YouTube masterclass video. You know that? There's a VHS video.
Yeah, I saw it. Yeah,
It's a
yeah,
great one, actually.
yeah. And the starting solo is incredible.
Yeah, yeah. It's just
yeah,
legato, clean shred, like very melodic, clean shred. That's great.
yeah.
What is he doing now?
I don't know.
It's just-
I guess he's still playing. Yeah.
Yeah, nice. So what? So I think nowadays because you're technical such a great player, you're doing a lot of master classes and teaching and videos like this video. But what do you enjoy most? Like, is this what you really like, or do you prefer to play on stage with your band, or like what do you enjoy most about playing guitar, or just being an artist or being a teacher? Like, because you do so many things. What do you enjoy most?
You know, sometimes I prefer to picture myself as an artist first, and then of course also as a teacher. But I don't consider myself prepared enough in order to be a complete teacher. You know, that's why I don't do lessons, because sometimes when I have to explain something to people, I sometimes forget that maybe for me something is I don't want to say simple, but you know, I go through a different process than most of the people, and sometimes I say to myself that my process maybe is not right for you. So before being a teacher, I think you have to prepare yourself to, you know, extrapolate the information and give it to you in the best way possible. That's why great musicians are not always great teachers, you know. You have to teach yourself how to teach people, basically. And I do clinics, of course, and I explain my way of, you know, my point of view about music and my point of view about practicing, and that might not be the right way for you. So I always say before starting the clinics that everything I say applies to me, but it does not apply to you necessarily, you know. So my favorite activity to do is for sure to be a performer, playing with my trio. That's the main activity I do now. So playing concerts, share my music to the people, it's the thing I honestly prefer to do right now. And also clinics are very good because you also learn a lot from other people, especially when they are asking you questions, and you also get interested about uh, what people are searching for. You know, there are more people interested in my technique, my fingerstyle technique. There are more people interested in harmony or how to play over changes and scales and all of that. And it's interesting just to see what excites the most to the people, you know.
But what excites you the most when you play?
Yeah, I think the sometimes are technical challenges, sometimes are songs. There are a lot of things about music that excite me a lot, and one of the first reasons was, you know, that I just wanted to play the songs I love. So that's why we all learn, you know, songs when we first start. And I remember the joy of learning Wall Lotta Love, and it was. So it's really
Nice.
a joy to learning riffs and songs, and that's why I continue to learn songs rather than, you know, practicing licks or exercises, because I often see that I learn more if I learn a song rather than a lick or a solo, you know, because a song is a complete package of things you need.
Yeah.
Because you practice rhythm, you practice harmony, and you practice, of course, melody because you have to learn
Yeah.
the melody. So when you are learning a song, you are learning like a complete package of things you need in order to be a good musician. Yeah.
And you just take the best things out of it, I think. Like
Yeah.
when you
Yeah.
learn stuff, you learn it, but you don't just learn it. You kind of make it your own thing. And
Yeah.
this is how your style kind of evolves. And this is
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
just the best thing to practice rather than just scales and stuff.
Yeah.
Which doesn't mean you shouldn't learn scales.
No,
It's very practical, right?
Yeah, it's really useful, of course, but it needs to be in context, you know. Everything
Yes.
I learned was like, okay, I need to learn a lick to play over Crazy Train, you know, or I need to play this scale over Walla Love. It was always on a song context, you know, just because it's more fun to me. Yeah.
Yeah, man. Well, Matteo, it was really nice having you.
Thank you.
Thanks for showing me the stuff, for playing with me. I'm really inspired right now, and I think this is one of the most important things, just to be inspired and
Thank you so much.
to challenge yourself, and you really inspired me. I actually wanted to play a solo in the beginning, but I didn't want to do it afterwards, after I jammed with him. So thank you for this experience, and yeah.
Thank you, man.
Great for having
I
you.
appreciate it.